live in a world that's been transformed due to EPA regulations. Everything. Our air conditions changed. The type of freon we use now is really expensive, and all of it's to go to the betterment of the environment and or energy conservation. Okay, our automobiles have been transformed. They are complete junk now because we have all these sensors and computers hooked up to the motor that prevents it, supposedly prevents pollution or at least reduces it. You have to have catalytic converters on your vehicles and whatnot. And it just goes on and on and on. Now with the houses, with the introduction of smart appliances, all geared. So in other words, it's less convenience, and it's all supposedly for the betterment of the environment. And ironically, we now have AI, which also makes our life um, it makes our life easier. Okay, so the flip side, we had things that made our life easier. We had to change them, and now our life is a little more difficult, but it's for the betterment of the environment. And then flip it over, flip it over, like you're going from the Hebrew path to a Western path where things are different. Flip it over, and now you have the EPA is making our life easier with AI, but at the cost of our environment. And this is the thing, like if you're going to raise airline tickets because we're burning too much jet fuel, if we have to pay $1,200 to have refrigerant pumped into our air conditions because the expensive refrigerant is a betterment, it's going to better our environment or whatnot. What about data centers? These data centers that are being used as the engine of AI, or the new Google, as I like to call it. So by 2030, just the data centers we have now, and I want you to keep in mind, I want you to remember this, times 7. So everything we have now, as far as data centers, they want to go 7 times larger, 7 times as many. That's what the estimate is, okay? To keep up where we want to go with AI. So by 2030, we will be consuming, or I should say producing, just the data centers themselves are going to be producing 44 million metric tons of CO2, okay? Every single day. That's every single day, okay? 500 million gallons of water per day, okay? And you're going to times that by 7, okay? So it'll be 35 million gallons per water per day. And if you now it's 5 million, I'm sorry, per data center, 5 million gallons per data center, okay? And I don't know exactly how many data centers they have now, but I do know that the amount of water we will be using by 2030, 32 billion gallons annually. That's 32 billion gallons of fresh water, mostly spring water they're using. They're not going to drain the Ohio River or the Mississippi River because they need that for shipping traffic. So they're going into the ground and they're sucking all of the good spring water out. It's going to be at a rate of 32 billion gallons per year, okay? Now, 42 new full-size nuclear power plants are needed right now to power all these new data centers. Okay, they're going to have to build 42 or equivalent to 42 new full-size nuclear power plants. Of course, that's not what they're doing. They're using natural gas. They're going to use coal. 40% of the new electric plants that they will be building just to power these data centers, okay, 40% of them is going to be fueled by coal or natural gas, which is going to emit all kind of CO2 into the atmosphere. Those numbers I don't even have. but they're estimating it to be 2.5 billion metric tons of CO2 every single year is going to be emitted from the new power plants to power these new AI data centers. Now, just the data centers themselves are going to produce 44 million metric tons of CO2. But the power plants that will be used to power those data centers are going to produce 2.5 billion metric tons of CO2. And if you take all those other policies I mentioned earlier, with automobiles, with the new Freon, with everything else going on, that the reason why you can't do this anymore or that is because it's dangerous for the environment. Everything from plastic straws to whatever else. It doesn't even come close to the 2.5 billion metric tons of CO2 being produced every year. So again, it's, things that made our life easier are being omitted out of our life because of CO2 poisoning in the environment. Yet this one tool, which is AI, that's supposed to improve our lives, is going to create more metric tons of CO2 into our atmosphere than all of the EPA regulations combined that we had over the past 20, 30 years, or whenever this whole green movement started, sometimes in the late 70s. So this is data centers. This is the power plants that will be operating or fueling these data centers, and all of the metric tons of CO2 it will cause, it release into the atmosphere every year.